There's this concept in ESG called materiality, and it basically boils down to what's the most relevant way for you to make a difference based on your business model. For us, it's technology, but every customer, every organization has something unique to them that they can offer the world.
Today, I'm speaking with Sunya Norman, SVP of ESG Strategy and Engagement at Salesforce. Sunya has over 15 years of experience building ESG programs at diverse organizations, from non-profits to Fortune 500 companies. Welcome, Sunya. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Now, look, you've been in the ESG space for so long. Catch us up. What's been going on over the past few years? What's top of mind at the moment?
Yeah, we're actually smack dab in the middle of this transformation for my field from primarily voluntary corporate action. Companies like Salesforce creating environmental and social programs because we care, because we think it's best for our business. But now regulators are stepping up and we're moving from voluntary to a regulatory environment.
And is that global?
It's absolutely global. Actually, leading is the EU.
Okay.
They are really looking comprehensively across ESG. Of course, they started with GDPR, with PII, helping us safeguard our personal information. Now they're getting into ESG disclosure and substantiating environmental and social claims to make sure that companies aren't greenwashing or social washing, as we call it. So they're really at the vanguard, but they're not alone. The EU is not the only region. We look at the US, and the US, the Security and Exchange Commission, has been drafting and passing rules all across ESG. There's one right now called the Climate Rule that'll be a similar ESG disclosure rule. We're seeing so much action from regional to country level.
Now, you mentioned greenwashing. When I talk to my CMO peers, that's actually a topic that's come up quite a lot. Tell me a little bit what's happened there and what's the watch out for organizations listening in?
People are expecting more from corporates in the ESG and corporate responsibility space. As I mentioned, some of the regulation actually requires companies to substantiate claims. Go to a store, your neighborhood grocery store, and you see this organic, natural, you name it. And some of these claims are meaningless, or they have a great deal of meaning, but consumers aren't educated. And I think there's been a general outcry, hey, tell us what's meaningful, and then hold companies accountable when they are making a claim that they're actually delivering.
Yes.
So that if we as consumers are making a choice based on those environmental or social attributes, that it's meaningful.
Now, I guess leapfrogging from that, is there any customer or industry that's doing this really well? Who can we look to here?
Yeah, I'm biased, but I am really encouraged by technology companies. You'll also see financial services companies. They're a little bit more highly regulated in terms of disclosures. There's, room for improvement in all industries, of course, and in every sector you have leaders and laggards. But this regulation is going to start to elevate everyone. All ships are going to have to rise.
Yes.
And so, when I talk to customers, I hear both excitement about shifting and bringing more people along to this transparency and action movement, but also a fair amount of anxiety. And it's bringing other CXO roles into the space as well.
And how do we help them out? I've been hearing great examples of new measurement, reporting tools. We've got some as well. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm super excited that we now have a product, GA, in market for GHG accounting, greenhouse gas accounting. It's called Net Zero Cloud. It's got an incredible story. One of my colleagues on the sustainability team taught herself how to be a Salesforce developer.
Trailblazer.
Yeah, exactly. Our first sustainability trailblazer. She created Net Zero Cloud first for our own internal use. And now it's grown from just an environmental accounting tool to a much more comprehensive ESG management suite. And so we can do not only our environmental accounting, but we can pull in social data, our employee representation data, our governance information. And what's really exciting is the team's now built in some Einstein AI features. So, I do all of our ESG reporting, me and my team. And it can be incredibly burdensome. So imagine just basic use cases of LLMs. Like, what if I was delivered an 80% done draft? You know, they suggest draft language for us based on our past reports, based on publicly available information, based on this year's data. And I'm just taking my human eye to it. I'm making sure that everything looks great. So I think there's a lot of time saving that can be gathered from AI. Already using Net Zero Cloud, we went from a reporting cycle of like 8 to 12 months after the fiscal year close to getting our report out in April, which is just a few months after our fiscal year closes.
That's incredible.
It's one of the quickest.
It's 2 months, right? Like 2 months. It's like from
one
1
of
year
the
to
quickest
2 months.
releases that I've seen in the market. When I tell customers about that, that's when their eyes really open.
Right, like 1
what?
year later, like
Yeah.
so much could have happened.
For a technology company like Salesforce, like, can you imagine how much is different?
I know you've also got some amazing customer examples from around the world. Do you mind sharing some?
Yeah, it's been incredible to see the adoption. So from the US, a great example is AT&T, big telecom company out of your region, Southern Australia government.
Yes.
Cushman Wakefield, global real estate firm. As you can imagine, they have so much to pull in to do their carbon accounting, so much energy and other building operations data. So we're seeing incredible traction across a lot of different sectors. Can be used by any organization, even a nonprofit.
So maybe just go one click further for the folks that are new to Net Zero Cloud. Like, what exactly are they tracking, and how does it help them do that?
So to do your ESG reporting, there's environmental data, social data, and governance data. And you pull that all together, and you're releasing statistics like what were your greenhouse gas emissions from your buildings, from your employee travel, from your data center operations. So it requires getting data from so many different sources. And you know well that what Salesforce does beautifully is automate data flows.
And bring it all together.
Yeah, and integrate. So that's one of the immediate values for our customer is just, again, going from spreadsheets and manual processes that are really prone to human error to automated data flows that then can be visualized. You know, our beautiful Salesforce dashboards, we have one that tracks our renewable energy commitment. We're committed to 100% renewable energy each year. And so it helps us track that. So programmatically, the team that procures renewable energy for Salesforce can see how we're progressing and can understand forecasting and where we need to get ahead of this action. On the social side, you typically are reporting things like workforce representation. You know, in the US, ethnicity. Around the world, maybe it's indigenous peoples or gender.
Yes.
And again, you know, it's great for that external reporting, but it also helps drive action internally.
Now, obviously, we've been talking a lot about AI this week, this year, this month, and there is some negative potential impact of AI as well. So maybe can you share a little bit about what you're hearing and what are we doing as well?
Yeah, I feel like you can't go 30 seconds without reading a headline around energy consumption from generative AI. See some really big projections. You know, no one knows exactly where we'll land, but 3 to 4x growth in data center energy consumption in the next few years is what a lot of people have centered around. That has really huge implications for greenhouse gas emissions growth at a time where the entire world is working urgently to bend our global emissions curve. And so it's definitely a concern. It's definitely something we're watching. What some people haven't highlighted as much is there's actually, with that energy consumption, you also see water increasing. Water usage is increasing at data centers for cooling. So you have that much compute and IT equipment, and it needs to be cooled down, and often water is how that happens. So that's the bad news. Yes, it's a challenge. We absolutely have to address it. We're already seeing a lot of folks in the industry take steps to mitigate this. We're talking a lot as an industry about right-sizing models. So, you know, as you make decisions around how to deploy and train your models, there's ways you can make that more efficient code, being more thoughtful about the size of your data sets, how often you run things. In the Salesforce use case, you know, we're not training our models on the entire internet. We're right-sizing our models to an enterprise use case. We just talked about the Saks Fifth Avenue our amazing
Amazing
customer.
retailer from the US.
They're running on Agentforce. And so we're not going to train models on the whole internet to service Saks' customers. They're going to train on their specific customer data, their sales data, their inventory, and that's a significantly smaller slice of information than the entire internet. So we're really fortunate when we've done analysis on how Salesforce is contributing to this challenge. It's magnitude smaller from an emissions and energy consumption perspective. So that's the good news. But
incredible.
we all have to be focused on this as an industry. I think tech companies especially, we have to step up. We have to be at the vanguard of addressing this for the world's sake.
Well, look, for the folks online who may be listening to this conversation going, wow, I have a lot to learn, there's a lot to do, what advice can you share for them to ensure that they are part of the solution here going forward?
Yeah, I always say when I get asked this question, just get started. Just start doing something. Every company can do something. You know, we think about, there's this concept in ESG called materiality, and it basically boils down to like, what's the most relevant way for you to make a difference based on your business model? For us, it's technology. That's why we're so excited about Net Zero Cloud. That's why we're so excited about the nonprofits that run on Salesforce, discounted and free licenses. That's how we feel like we can contribute best. But every customer, every organization has something unique to them that they can offer the world. You know, food companies working on hunger and food availability issues, food waste, energy companies helping us transition to clean energy. We all have a role to play. And I think that's what gives me the most hope when I see a company stepping up and pulling the levers that are unique to them.
I love that. Well, I hope there's more ESG nerds. I think that was your term out there listening. And you're such a trailblazer and you've done an incredible job at Salesforce. Thank you so much, Sunya.
Thank you.